The Pennsylvania Office of Victim Advocate is the state agency with the duty and authority to advocate for the individual and collective rights of victims of crime. We help crime survivors navigate through criminal justice systems and find pathways to hope and healing. Trauma-informed victim services, crime prevention, and restorative justice initiatives are the primary avenues we utilize to accomplish our mission. Because trauma is multifaceted, approaches to healing require collaboration with a variety of service providers. OVA is committed to engaging local community groups as partners and working side by side with community leaders who are often most aware of the needs of the community. OVA believes collaboration is the key to victim-centered, trauma-informed services. Trauma-informed victim services. Trauma is the emotional and mental result of abnormally stressful experiences that overwhelm an individual's sense of security and safety. Trauma is subjective and affects people differently. The effects of trauma can be severe and long-lasting. OVA approaches services to victims of crime with a trauma lens. We incorporate our knowledge of trauma and responses to trauma, particularly how trauma impacts the brain and disrupts normal coping mechanisms, into all services we provide. Crime prevention. OVA is committed to creating safe, caring communities where justice thrives, avenues to healthy, productive pathways to pursue purpose and dreams are fundamental for young community members and emerging adults. OVA is seeking impactful, sustainable approaches to support local community efforts that prevent crime. Survivors repeatedly express the hope that what happened to them never happened to anyone else. This is the hope that fuels our crime prevention efforts. Restorative justice. Restorative justice is a collaborative approach to repairing harm caused by crime. Approaches often include facilitated discussions between those who caused harm and the victims and communities who suffered as a result of the harm. The restorative justice process builds resiliency by incorporating principles of empowerment into the resolution process. The Office of Victim Advocate consists of a management team and a number of victim assistance coordinators at our central office in Harrisburg, as well as an advocate physically located in the Attorney General's office, the Pittsburgh region, Northeast region, Philadelphia region, and the Lehigh Valley region. The call center was created in March of 2018 to answer the higher demands of crime victims and survivors calling in for support. Calls are taken by trauma-informed advocates who will answer questions, address safety concerns, help survivors navigate the criminal justice system, and make appropriate referrals. Services are confidential and designed to empower survivors and help them enforce their rights as a crime victim. Safety and support. Registration with the Office of Victim Advocate. Those registered with the Office of Victim Advocate include the direct victim of crime, parents and legal guardians of minor victims, parents and legal guardians of incapacitated adult victims who have power of attorney, family members of homicide victims, and those with safety concerns who are not the direct victim of crime, but request to receive notifications regarding the offender's status. Registration can occur at any time. County agencies and district attorney offices are encouraged to refer victims and survivors to the Office of Victim Advocate as early as possible. Why should victims register? In Pennsylvania, crime victims have rights. In order to receive the range of rights available, victims should register with the Office of Victim Advocate. Registration is voluntary and confidential. Primarily, rights include the option to receive various notifications about the status of the offender and the option to provide input to the PA parole board if and when the offender becomes parole eligible. OVA has additional supportive programs available to registered crime victims, including the Address Confidentiality Program, as well as a variety of restorative justice services. The registration form is available online at www.ova.pa.gov. After registering, victims will receive additional information in the mail and will begin receiving notification regarding the offenders in their case. It is important that victims remain in contact with the District Attorney's Office for information on upcoming appeals or changes in status from the county court systems. Notifications to registered victims. If a crime victim wishes to understand any and all actions that occur regarding their offender while in a state correctional institution or while on state parole, registration with OVA is vital. If crime victims are not registered with OVA, they run the risk of being notified of major events in their respective cases, to include any release or review via the media, or even worse, by the actual offender. Registration with the Office of Victim Advocate is voluntary and confidential, and the level of the victim's involvement with OVA is completely up to them. Notifications that you can opt to receive from OVA are different from the automated SAVIN notifications through VINE. The SAVIN system notifies victims if the offender is transferred between correctional institutions, but does not contact them when the offender is being considered for parole review or when a parole decision has been made. Victims and survivors can be registered to receive both types of notifications. Anyone can sign up to receive automated SAVIN notifications that will include inmate movement between state prison, transferred to other prisons such as county or federal, inmate death, parole releases, and releases due to a court order. Victims and survivors registered with the Office of Victim Advocate can receive our notifications as well as SAVIN notifications if they choose. The Address Confidentiality Program. The Address Confidentiality Program, also known as ACP, is a mail forwarding service for victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, or stalking who are relocating to a location that is unknown to their perpetrator. ACP provides an alternative address for the victim to prevent their actual physical address from becoming part of public record. The confidential address may be used as a legal address for court and state government records, including driver's license and ID cards, vehicle and voter registrations, school records, and marriage licenses. Participation into this program is by referral from a local victim service agency, specifically sexual assault and domestic violence agencies, who will help victims fill out their application. Institutional advocacy. In 2016, OVA created an Institutional Victim Assistance Coordinator, otherwise known as IVAC, in order to assist those inside a state prison who have been physically assaulted, to include both offenders and staff. The IVAC's role includes providing assistance with the victim impact statements for court hearings and parole hearings, court accompaniment for court hearings, explanation of the court process, communicating with family, this mostly occurs with the offender's family, navigating restitution payments if restitution was ordered by the court, and answering questions about sex offender notifications when applicable. Parole and clemency input. If registered with OVA, a victim has the right to be provided with notification if their offender submits an application to the Board of Pardons asking for a pardon or clemency. OVA will notify registered victims once the offender submits an application, the outcome of the offender's merit review, and information if the offender is granted a public hearing. If their offender is granted a public hearing, victims may send in a written statement, give a verbal statement over the phone, appear at the hearing, and provide their own testimony, or have an OVA advocate read their testimony at the hearing. OVA will offer support and accompaniment during testimony at the hearing. OVA will also notify the victim of the board's decision, as well as if and when the offender will be officially pardoned or commuted and released via the governor. Restitution. OVA has a dedicated advocate who handles all restitution cases, whether the offender is in a state prison or on state parole. This advocate collaborates with all 67 county clerk of court offices, inmate account offices in all state prisons, and parole agents in the event that the offender is not paying restitution. The Department of Corrections automatically takes 25% of an inmate's account to send to the county to apply towards restitution. In order for this to occur, the Department of Corrections needs the proper paperwork from the county in order for these deductions to be made. For offenders on parole, OVA can petition the parole board to include collection of restitution and wage attachments to be included as conditions of the offender's parole. If you would like more information regarding restitution collection, please view Tips for Enhancing Restitution Collections Guide located at www.ova.pa.gov under Restorative Justice and Restitution. Restorative justice. Juvenile justice. In 2019, OVA created a Juvenile Justice Victim Assistance Coordinator who works to create positive partnerships throughout the juvenile justice system to promote and strengthen balanced and restorative practices throughout the Commonwealth. This position also aids in providing technical support to all victim assistance personnel at the local level who work exclusively with victims of juvenile offenders to ensure a warm handoff from county to state victim services. OVA now offers a free training to learn to facilitate restorative group conferences for juveniles. Contact us to learn more about hosting a free workshop in your community. Victim Offender Dialogue. The Victim Offender Dialogue program, otherwise known as VOD, is a victim-initiated process which allows a victim and offender to sit down for the face-to-face dialogue. While this program is victim-initiated, offenders also have to agree to participate and can either be incarcerated in a state prison or on state parole. Trained facilitators prepare both parties for a face-to-face meeting and provide accompaniment for that discussion in a trauma-informed manner. This process can be stopped anytime, at any point. If the victim is not comfortable having a face-to-face meeting, an indirect dialogue, for an example of that would be letter writing, is also available. The Inmate Apology Bank. The Inmate Apology Bank, otherwise known as IAB, was created in 2012 and allows offenders in state prison and on state parole to send an apology letter to victims to OVA. All letters received by OVA are vetted to ensure they are appropriate and will not re-victimize the victim in any way. Crime victims have different needs and can experience long-lasting effects of trauma as a result of the crime. Some victims wonder if the offender is sorry for what they did and what they have been doing to rehabilitate themselves while incarcerated. Victim participation in the IAB program is completely voluntary. If a letter comes into OVA from their offender, the victim will be notified of the letter, and it is their choice if and how their letter is received. If there is an existing protection from abuse order, otherwise known as a PFA, a restraining order in another state, a cease communication order, or any other order indicating no contact, the inmate will be informed that their letter cannot be forwarded while this order is still active. Resilient voices. Because most citizens come in contact with victims, even if they don't know it, one priority of the Resilient Voices program is to prepare communities to work and communicate effectively with victims and treat them with dignity and respect. OVA has a pool of passionate, talented survivors through the Resilient Voices program, available to speak about sexual assault, domestic violence, childhood sexual abuse, homicide, drug-related deaths, the devastation of losing a child, and other topics related to victimization. The goal of the Resilient Voices program is to provide a space for victims and survivors to share their personal experience, strength, and hope in a setting that matches their individual goals. Those who are a part of Resilient Voices have spoken in state prisons, schools, churches, as well as at community events, rallies, and trainings. For more information regarding the Office of Victim Advocate, please feel free to call our 800 number, 1-800-563-6399, from Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You can also visit our website at www.ova.pa.gov. You can also send our office an email at ra-ovainfo@pa.gov. Thank you so much for joining us, and please feel free to contact our office